Hello, my name is DJ Kellinghaus, and I'm presenting my research today to you on the Newcomer Challenge, Strategies for Newcomers. My goal today is to talk to you about the many challenges that mainstream teachers face in educating the super diverse population that's now in American schools. Many mainstream teachers are not prepared, either pedagogically or culturally, to handle the challenges that they are faced with the growing number of newcomers that are entering American schools. And so I did my research with the perspective of an English learner teacher, and how can I help my mainstream teachers handle the newcomer challenge, and how can I myself handle the newcomer challenge, and what strategies and things are going to make me and make my mainstream teachers better teachers. So the first thing I realized is that there are three basic truths. The first truth, of course, is that teachers must value the learning process and the need for comprehensible input. And it's important for teachers to understand that language learning is a process and that comprehensible input plays a part in that. The second truth I realized is that teachers must overcome cultural bias and misconceptions in order to teach newcomers. And thirdly, for newcomers, there is nothing common about the Common Core. Let's consider this. One appealing and useful factor for teachers to consider is the idea of developmental acquisition or learning stages. As much as English language learners know, and we know as English language learner teachers, that learning comes in stages when it comes to language learning. And second language learning is much similar to first language learning. Teachers aware of those 5 stages of development in second language learning. First, of course, the pre-production stage, the stage when kids are often silent. The second stage, early production, when kids are just beginning to acquire language. The third stage, speech emergence. And the fourth stage, beginning fluency. These stages are all needed for language learners before we can expect them to get to intermediate or advanced fluency. Oftentimes, our mainstream teachers want and need and expect English language learners to get to the speech emergence stage very quickly so that they can acclimate and acquire academic vocabulary. And it's hard for mainstream teachers to manage students who are in pre-production or early production language stages, especially at the secondary learning level. Let's connect that to the idea of comprehensible input. It is important for our mainstream teachers because it supports the notion that students learn when they are challenged, but not challenged beyond his or her linguistically appropriate level, also known as their zone of proximal development. If we can help teachers understand this, then understanding the stages of development can help teachers plan strategies and instructions that are specific to the stage of language development and still address the need for comprehensible input. Let's look at some strategies for each stage of language development that can help teachers address the need for comprehensible input. Stage 1, the pre-production stage for language. This stage, of course, is often known as the silent stage. It's when students take in the new language, but they often do not speak it. This period often lasts 6 weeks or longer, depending on the individual learner and the learning environment. This is a time when we need to encourage teachers and ourselves to focus on visual and auditory comprehension. Speak with simplified but correct English. Avoid excessive error correction. These strategies are conducive to students who are just starting to experience a second language. Also, avoiding excessive error correction maintains motivation for students and makes them want to keep gaining language. We also need to reinforce learning by modeling correct language usage. One way that we can introduce language to students is through a resource that I like that you can also introduce to your teachers called tarhillreader.org. Reader is a web page that I like to refer my teachers to because it has alternative resources for students who are just acquiring language. It allows teachers to either find a book or write a book that they are interested in for their students. The nice thing is if you go to find a book, teachers can type in a common topic or something they're trying to teach their students about. For example, the word classroom. And when they search that word, they will get interesting things. For example, the first day of school. That creates a book that is visually appealing for students. It provides pictures so students can have visuals for their language. They're also giving simple language, simple sentences that we can model the language for them, and pictures they can relate or connect to the sentences. So this provides teachers with a great resource and a great starting point in classrooms when they're unsure sometimes what resources can be used. Now let's consider the second stage, which is the early production stage of language. In this stage, the students begin to speak short words and sentences. The emphasis is still on listening and absorbing the new language, but this stage is definitely a movement forward. This stage contains lots of errors. Excessive errors are still not a concern. We're still using lots of strategies from the first stage, but now we can add questioning. We can add language production. Students start speaking the language using basic language skills. Students should still be focused on verbal and language acquisition and growth. A great resource for this production stage, a great resource for teachers, a great resource for English language learners is a website called Edutopia. Edutopia offers many resources. There are video resources, which are great for students at this level. There are lots of topic resources, so you can browse topic resources, everything from brain-based learning, Common Core, to game-based learning. So these are lots of great resources for many different levels. The wonderful thing about Edutopia is they're offering opportunities for different grade levels. If you search in Edutopia, English language learner, Edutopia has quite a few resources that are inspiring for English learner teachers and English learner students. The English learners, students has everything from engaging parents of English language learners to resources like 5-minute film festivals and videos for the ELL classroom. So these are really great information for beginning informations for English language learners to incorporate within a classroom. Now let's go to stage 3, which is the speech emergence stage. In this stage, the student's speech becomes more frequent and words and sentences become longer. This is the stage that teachers become comfortable with. It's during this stage the students may still rely heavily on context clues and familiar topics, but the student's vocabulary will be larger. It will continue to grow. Errors become less frequent. At this point, we're still using some of the stages 1 and 2 strategies, but we're beginning to implement academic vocabulary strategies. So we can model sentence structure, we can implement questioning strategies, vocabulary strategies, content vocabulary strategies, how to use context clues. This is a great time to introduce charts and graphs. Organizers are good for students at this point. Lots of great organizers. Beginning writing practice. It's not uncommon for students at this stage to be writing in bullets. And paragraphs are just beginning to develop. A really great resource for this stage that I love is a wonderful website that's called wonderopolis.org. If you've never seen wonderopolis.org, we are quite happy with it. My teachers and I, we love Wonderopolis. The Wonderopolis is a place for students to wonder. And the wonderful thing about wonders is they can wonder about just about anything. So a student can come to Wonderopolis. Wonderopolis is free for teachers, which is always great. We like free. When you come to Wonderopolis, teachers can search wonders. Oftentimes when I need even something as an anchor activity for students in my ELL class, I will say to them, I think it would be great if you wonder. What are you wondering about today? And so students will say, I'm wondering about electricity. We were working on electricity in science. And I will say, what a great wonder. And they will type in the word electricity. And lo and behold, in the world of wonders, we will look for science. No electricity one specifically, but what it will bring up is really great things that have to do with the topic we placed in. So science, math, right, social studies. The students say, it didn't come up under electricity. And I say, what were you studying in science? And they'll say, we were talking about lightning and how lightning and electricity are different or the same. And I say, can you type in the word lightning? And they type in the word lightning, and we get what happens when lightning strikes a tree, what causes lightning. And so, lo and behold, we get thunder. We also, down here, will get who discovered electricity, which is interesting because we didn't get it with electricity, and so sometimes they get it when they focus in on their topics. If we click on a wonder, this is important. Your teachers will love this because we're talking about that emergent stage now. The great thing about wonders is you can print wonders as a PDF and use them in class. Wonders come with questions, and we want to start adding questions. Who discovered electricity? Did ancient people know about electricity? So these are focus questions that students haven't thought about using before. So there are videos that help students, and students like visuals, so we're getting visuals. We're also getting vocabulary assistance. So you'll see if there's a word, and they're often words that we think students will struggle with, especially English language learners, they're able to move the mouse over that word and it gives them a definition, helpful, right, for that word. They can also study these words, work on these words to increase their academic vocabulary. These are academic vocabulary words, words like electricity and scientific and discovered. And then they can take a wonder word. At the very end of their wonder, they can try it out. There are several options for try it out. It gives them ideas for how they can save electricity, so these are really great applications. There's a homemade battery, which is a scientific lab that students can do, which is pretty exciting. Most importantly, there are the opportunity for students to not only read, answer questions, work on vocabulary, but find extensions. And so that's always important for students, right, is to find those extensions. So this is a wonderful web page to be used for all levels of English language learners, but definitely wonderful for emergent learners. So let's take now a look at Stage 4. Stage 4 is fluency, and we're looking at beginning fluencies, but still in this stage, speech has become fairly fluent, especially in social situations. We find that our English language learners are starting to be more social. They're talking among groups and friends and in class. Academic language is still a challenge, and students will continue to struggle to express themselves on occasions due to gaps in vocabulary, appropriate phrases. They'll get confused about idioms. They'll have some cultural gaps still. They'll have some background gaps still. So we still will rely a lot on the strategies from Stage 3, but we can begin to talk to our teachers and ourselves, start thinking about active reading and writing strategies. These are strategies that work even for struggling readers in regular English learning classes and students who are native English speakers. So we're talking about active reading strategies like think, pair, share, before reading strategy, during reading strategies, highlighting, annotating, textual notes, talking about after reading strategies, reflecting, context clues, summarizing, paraphrasing. These kinds of strategies are strategies we want to now start instilling in our English language learners. Students also can now start participating in presentations and discussions with academic vocabulary. They can begin to enter that zone of proximal development with academic vocabulary. It's now not too much of a challenge, but part of their challenge to address academic vocabulary. One really great resource for students who are getting into fluency and really becoming fluent is a website called NewsELA. NewsELA is a great resource for teachers. But the NewsELA website, you'll find, first of all, that there's a sign in or sign up. You can actually sign up for free. It's a free membership for teachers, which again is a wonderful thing. We like free. And then the great thing about NewsELA is as soon as you log in on any given day, it's going to bring up very quickly some of the most common or important headlines of current news events. So, for example, you'll see right now the Syrian refugee stories mimic struggles by Anne Frank's family. You'll see that city-states crack down on bicycles distracted by smartphones. So these are some common topics that we can bring to students and we can use for students. The really great thing is that when you choose a topic, so if we are studying about distractions and argumentative language and that cell phones are distracting, and I click on an article and I say, oh, I like this article for my students, over to the right of the article, so you can print an article, you can share it, you can keep it. The great thing about these articles that your teachers that we like, is over here on the right side you're going to see max Lexile right here. These Lexile levels are all the same article. So it's amazing. So right now it's at about a 10th, 11th grade reading level. So we're looking at a 1040 reading level, and when we look down through the article, we can read the full article if you have an account, and I don't have my account logged in, but it'll pull the full article up for you. If you change the Lexile, it doesn't change the article, it only changes the language in the article. What happens is it's wonderful. You get an article in simplified language, which is it's a wonderful opportunity for teachers to teach the same article to a class of diverse students. So you can have 3 levels of Lexile or even 4 levels of Lexile in the same class. Every student gets the same article with the same picture, with the same heading, with the same underheading, and then they don't know particularly that you're giving them different articles. You may tell them, you may not, but it's definitely an opportunity for the teacher for differentiation. There's also within NewsELA a write where they can write about the article. There's also quizzes where you can give quizzes about the article. So which detail best supports the article's main idea? And there's several different questions. So now let's take a look at that very last stage, which for us is the stage where oftentimes we're releasing students for services in English language learning and putting them in monitoring. English language learners, when they hit the intermediate or the advanced fluency stage, are able to speak fluently in most situations, and even sometimes in most academic situations, even with the use of academic vocabulary. They are using context skills. They will still have some gaps in vocabulary, some unknown expressions, idioms will still sometimes get to them. There are a few errors, and the student is able to demonstrate correction at this point. Students can fix them. They can fix those errors. They can error repair. Students may still have an accent. At times they can use those idiomatic expressions incorrectly, but the student is essentially fluent and comfortable in the second language. It's when we start to let go. So you'll see here we have a few things that we do within this stage. First of all, we see growth and success close to native fluency. We start to continue to develop language skills as gaps arise. This is when we get more into native language instruction. We start using language vocabulary skills, developmental writing skills, and things, still with some support. We're using organizers still. We're using some extended time in processing for language to come through. Remember, that language is still coming through a native language filter and a native language thinker, and so sometimes they're still adapting that. We're continuing to use visual supports, background knowledge, and pre-teaching sometimes context so that they can continue to grow. Language learners can accept error correction at this point. They are not only accepting of error correction, but oftentimes error correcting themselves, both on verbal language, written language. There is a really great resource out there that I like that I wanted to tell everyone about. This resource is called Understanding Language. It's a resource through the Stanford Graduate School of Education. It's been extremely helpful to me, and I actually found it helpful through research and even attending a presentation on it. They have quite a few resources for English language learner teachers, and they've done quite a bit of focus on both English language learning, and you'll see even here the California schools are holding back English language learners, say Stanford research. They've done quite a bit of research themselves on English language learners, strategies that are working for English language learners, and it's wonderful because there are videos, there are instructional resources that are available. And so the best way to use this website truly is to go to the teaching resources. If you go to the teaching resources, there are English language arts resources. I would tell mainstream teachers that is a wonderful resource. If you're an English language learner and you want to go to English language learners, there is also some focus within this website on English language learning. And so you're able to get in here and see that there's actually English language learner content standards and things that they have available through their website that is really just for kind of English language learning. I think what I like the most when I come to this website, on the language arts websites, you'll see that they have Persuasion Across Time and Space. This is actually an English language arts Common Core Standards unit, but they've developed it with English language learners in mind. As a matter of fact, you can see down here it says, in planning this unit, our goal was not only to make a high-quality teaching resource, but to demonstrate practices of broader application in the education of ELLs. And so this is a really great resource for English language learning when you come. And then once you get into that unit, they have all kinds of great resources within that unit, video resources, organizers. That unit alone is worth coming to this website and checking it out. And you get in here, you get into the ELA unit videos. They have things like talk moves and ELLs working together and group working and talking about the different ways to incorporate ELL. So it really is a resourceful page not only for English learner teachers but for the mainstream teachers. Some of the misconceptions that mainstream teachers have is that our English language learners are all a homogeneous group, that all English learners learn the same way and they all benefit equally from the same instructional approaches. Of course, we know that's not true. Research shows that not only are English learners completely and totally diverse, but their needs are diverse, their situations are diverse. And so we have to make sure that mainstream teachers are aware of the factors with English language learners, the socio-cultural diversity, the attitudes, the self-esteem, the motivation of those students, the literacy and education that they're bringing to the table is important both in their native language and what they have already acquired and what stage they are in their second language. Their individual differences, their learning styles, and even their sociolinguistic or their learner language and where they are with that learner language. These things are important for mainstream teachers so that they can communicate and build relationships with those English language learners. There are several cultural competency strategies that can be used. It's critical that EL teachers develop strategies for acquiring important information that may help to better understand how their EL student will learn. These strategies can identify what expectations a student has for learning and what educational roles look like to the learner. In other words, it's important for us to realize what education looks like to a student. What do they expect teachers to do? What do they think school looks like? What did school look like for them? And what topics are sensitive or difficult for them? These things are important for students, and they're important for teachers. Mainstream teachers should know these things. English learners, language learners shouldn't go to a classroom without these things prepared for teachers so that they are not blindly teaching students. There are several things that we can do to prepare teachers for these. One is student profiles. A student profile is, very simply put, something that creates a profile of the student, a sort of snapshot or picture for the teachers so that they get an idea or some information on that teacher. Also, you can use parent questionnaires. Those are great because sometimes if you can't have students communicate, you can have parents communicate some of the students' needs and some of the concerns for the learning and the schooling. Open houses are great because it allows for open dialogue. It's also a great time to bring in one translator and maybe discuss and talk to several different families or students at a time. Cultural integration learning is very important. It's important that learning doesn't just become an exercise in language, but an exercise in cultural integration. Students need to feel like their language and their culture are coming to school with them. And so it's important for teachers to know there are resources for those. I have several resources attached to my PowerPoint if you are interested in them. A sample student profile, a sample student survey or parent survey, a sample open house invite. In Our Village was introduced to me in a seminar that I went to on community service learning and cultural awareness. And In Our Village is a book written by students in an African village who created pictures and then wrote stories about their village life. The idea was then to get students around the world to write about their village, their communities, and incorporate that into a book that then could be sent back to the village so other people could show the students in Africa their community and their life. The opportunity is boundless. Students can write about their communities, they can write about their homes they came from, they can write about, and not only write, they can talk about, they can create pictures because the book has pictures. And so the In Our Village comes with a full resource, it comes with a full unit. So you'll see it talks about the book, it talks about the links and teaching resources. So it comes with a unit, it comes with information on the curriculum and where the curriculum comes from. It comes from Geography in Action, so it comes with National Geographic text connections. It's endless. The In Our Village project, global project, is also what it's called. So if you go to the In Our Village global project, you'll also see information on it there, which is an action global project about communicating across communities and across the world. And so it's a wonderful opportunity and definitely a wonderful resource to use for students to get cultural integration within the schools. Okay. So, academic language. The challenge with academic language, really quickly, just to bring up for teachers, if your teachers are struggling with how to manage that academic language, the best thing to do for them is to reaffirm what scaffolding is for them, of course. Oftentimes mainstream teachers and sometimes even English learner teachers ourselves, we forget that scaffolding can be things that are somewhat mainstream. Things like clarifying and questioning and modeling skills and strategies for understanding. So teachers need to know, especially in the first few stages of language learning, that teachers should slow down when they speak, and they need to clarify things for learners. Oftentimes, learners are listening, they just want a clarification. They just want to question or ask again. And so we should too ask learners to clarify understanding. That's what doesn't always happen. So as teachers and as English language teachers, we should say to students, I want you to think about what you are saying. I want you to think about how you are saying it. I want you to tell me a little more. Can you repeat that? What do you mean when you say that? So the idea is to get students to start thinking about what they are saying, when they are saying it, and how they are saying it. And so the academic language then becomes part of their process. Another opportunity for mainstream teachers, CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. Reading strategies, very much like mainstream strategies again, before, during, and after reading strategies, accessing prior knowledge, visualizing, skimming, and scanning, inferencing. This is when we're getting kids into a fluency level and we want them to start acquiring that cognitive level of academic language proficiency. And so we want them to participate in academic discourse. We need students to have academic discussions. We need to have them talk to each other. Look up the word Talk Moves. It's an amazing resource. What happens is we give students sentence starters. We say to them, I want you to start with this sentence starter. And it gives them the will to say more if they have something to start with. Journaling is amazing. Have students journal. They can journal anything. Today I had a student start writing about when he first came to the United States. He came a year ago, but today he decided to write about it. And so journaling works because sometimes they need to write, and it's their writing when journaling happens. Collaboration and group roles. Start having roles assigned so that your English language learners are accountable in a group, so that they are participating, so that they are not outsiders watching language happen, but they are participating in the language action. So, as we tend to look through language and not realize how much power language has, we want to remind our mainstream teachers that language is power. The incorporation of literacy across contents will also ensure that English learners can begin to participate fully in grade level coursework. Opportunities for classroom discourse and interaction must also be well designed to enable English language learners to develop communicative strengths in content classrooms. In other words, we want our teachers to know it's important to have classroom discussions and interactions to get English language learners involved, to let them be part of the language and the academic discussion. Research has also demonstrated that vocabulary acquisition occurs most successfully through instructional environments that are language rich and actively involve students in using language. To develop written and oral communication skills, students need to participate in negotiating meaning for content, academic vocabulary, and practices that require output from students. English language learners will not learn if they are not speaking, and they are not writing, and they are not listening, and they are not reading. Language has power when they are being powerful in the use of their language. I hope that you enjoyed my presentation today. If you have any questions or you are interested in any other resources that I have, I would like to very quickly show you my website that I have. My website is www.misskellinghaus.com. On misskellinghaus.com, you'll find teachers' resources. On the teacher resources are informational resources, understanding your EL students' levels, assessment guidelines for ELLs, Marzano's strategies with ELL modifications. There's cultural orientations and get to know for your ELLs. Also, if you go under the student parents resource links, there's great resource links in there for students and parents. There's Fluent U Classroom, if you've never been familiar with that. There is ESL homework links and 5-minute English. There's an ESL America link and Breaking News English if you've never heard of those before. I also have some glossaries and things that we begin to add to our website for our students as we've started. I have a wonderful link to digital field trips, and if you're interested in those, you are also welcome to those. Digital field trips are great for English learners because you can take them places all over the United States without leaving your classroom. Just takes a computer and some clicking of a mouse. They can go to Washington, D.C., they can go to the Smithsonian, they can even have a Planet in Action tour or Colonial Williamsburg. These are really great resources and fairly easy to find if you go digital field trip hunting on your computer. So again, if you need to contact me or you have questions, you can also go to my contact link on misskellinghaus.com. And there I am. You just put in your name, your email, and your comments or your questions, and you send that right to me. That comes straight to my email, and I will get right back to you as soon as I receive your email. So have a good night. Enjoy your evening.